to another Several People Are Typing. It is December 10th, and I've got Andrew and Will with me here today, and we're going to talk about some politics and gaming and fun. Hey guys, how you doing? How's your Thursday going so far? You guys can answer that part. Did you got a good Thursday? Okay.
I thought it was Friday for half the day, so a little disappointed.
Yeah, that's a pretty disappointing Thursday, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's basically how my week's gone. That it's just taken forever.
All right. Well, we're off to a great start. So let's get into some fun politics, not to get even more depressing. But the first thing I wanted to bring up, because we usually talk about politics first and then maybe try and end on a lighter note, is this. I guess it's kind of combined. The whole Texas lawsuit suing other states for not running their elections properly. So Texas is suing Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and I believe Pennsylvania, telling them that because they didn't run their own state elections, which they have full authority to do, followed their own state rules, that they, I guess, should be invalidated or electors should be changed. But basically, the essence is flip it to Trump. And if that's not crazy enough, 106 congressmen and I believe the House all signed this kind of, moral support statement backing this up and adding additional pressure that this now holds validity. So this isn't just Trump. This isn't just Trump and Giuliani, not just Trump and Giuliani and some crazy lawyers. This is, as even though it feels incredibly unlikely, there is a larger swell than I ever thought would have happened at this point. So I guess I'll start with Will.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. The Congress people are disappointing, but I mean, they're not true believers, right? For the most part. I'm sure there are some, but it's really just this like craven understanding that Trump has and will continue to have, pretty incredible support, and they want to be reelected. So they're not going to jeopardize that in any way. Right. So this seems like the easiest way to show everybody that they fully support the president, even though it's insane. But I think that it's important to understand that they're not true believers, right? They don't believe that he won. They don't actually want to destroy democracy. I don't believe. I think that they, it's kind of the 2016. Everybody assumes Hillary is going to win, so they can do crazy things. And this is everybody assumes that Trump is going to get thrown out of court, so they can do crazy things to like shore up their support for re-election in 2 years.
Andrew, you got anything?
Yeah. I mean, to piggyback on that, I think that may be the case, but that doesn't excuse it from being scary behavior and inexcusable. Like sure, like they can pretend to be crazy, but what happens? What happens if their plan comes to fruition? Right? Are they going to be like, oh no, we didn't actually mean that? Like that's not going to happen. They would all be more than happy to validate what they're supporting, and get another 4 years of Trump and the insanity that we've seen these past four. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's disappointing. I think I haven't looked at the specifics. I don't know if all of those people are in the House, but I feel like the House has a bit more of the far right loons than the Senate does, maybe.
Well, higher ability to gerrymander, right? It's hard. It's easier to fix districts at a smaller level than it is
right. And you get, I mean, there are some really crazy representatives that you get because of that. But 106, that is a lot. That's a significant amount. What is that, a quarter? A little bit more, like a little bit less. But yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing. It's slightly concerning. I mean, I choose to believe that there's no way in hell that this would ever pass. But just the fact that it's has this much support is concerning.
Well, to be clear, it's that there are more Republican Congress people that signed on to this than didn't.
Yeah, that's a stat right there. What about violence? Do you think? I mean, we can all do the no one really thinks this is real, but of the 73 million or so that voted for Trump, there is certainly a significant proportion, right, that 100% believes this is all real. I mean, I see it in comment sections, reactionary, YouTube channels, and the propaganda. It works. Giuliani showing 1,000 affidavits. People say, how can 1,000 people all be lying, or how can 1,000 people all, not really understand what's going on, and that kind of, like, they can't get past that logic. Like his propaganda is it's well done, and it's incredibly effective at the moment. And now congressmen Congress people backing it up. It has to add to it. It has to only embolden that kind of feeling, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would say that there is momentum building on their side. There's definitely a wave. Where that goes, I don't know, but this isn't something that I originally assumed that this was just going to go away, right? That these were lunatics, and lunatics are going to be lunatics, but nothing was ever going to come of it. It seems like they're picking up support, which is yeah, a bit scary.
Well, I mean, you have the sitting president of the United States calling Congress people and attorney generals, telling them to sign on to this lawsuit. So, it is interesting times. I agree that there is a wave. There's no chance. I still don't think that the Supreme Court even chooses to hear this case. I think they do the same thing that they did to the Pennsylvania case, where they just throw it out, or not throw it out, but choose not to hear it. Yeah, and I mean, hopefully at that point, the kind of game that all of the Republican Congress people are playing, which is, we don't know that there's fraud. What we do know is that Donald Trump has the right to these lawsuits, and he has the right to challenge, the election via the legal process, because it's legal, right? Obviously, it's not in the spirit of the law, but that, he's technically right. So, it's the worst kind. But hopefully, hopefully after this gets struck down, essentially, they can backpedal away from that pretty quickly. Like, oh, his challenges are over. This was the last thing that he could do, and Joe Biden is the president-elect.
Yeah, I think that some of the things that I've been seeing, and I linked an article of it in Slack a few nights ago, is after the Pennsylvania one was struck down, is that there's this cognitive dissonance where all of these, well, not all, but a lot of these supporters, a lot of these people that were supporting the Pennsylvania lawsuit, now we're like, oh well, this was actually part of the plan. This isn't a big deal. The Supreme Court struck that down because they're waiting to hear the Texas case, because that's the one that affects all of the states. Like, it's like constantly moving the goalposts.
Very like Q, right? Something's gonna happen, something doesn't happen, and they say, yeah, that was the point. It's part of the bigger plan. Like, everything's always part of another plan, right? It's always by design. It's not. It couldn't possibly be incompetency. It must be.
Everybody does. Everybody plans to lose 55 lawsuits.
How else do you win the 56th?
Yeah, exactly. How else do you win the whole thing unless you lose the first 55?
Right.
Yeah, it has a very like Mayan calendar 2012 vibe to it, right? The end of the world is coming, and then 2013 came. It was like, not really, right?
Yeah. And the underdog part is such an interesting. It's just it really shows the power of like a narrative. Owning the majority of Congress, the Supreme Court, the AG, and the president, and yet somehow the president is the underdog. Like he's the scrappy fighter against the system. It's impressive that narrative. Like I would say on the face of it, there's no way that narrative could stick and hold, and it's impressive how strong that is part of it and baked into it, right? I don't know. I guess it just says something about how far you can push something and divorce it from reality. So
Well, yeah, it's his cult of personality. Like he can, it doesn't even matter what he says anymore. Like his followers believe him. You know, he's done ridiculous things. Like they continue to believe him. Like he has a cult of personality. He has cult followers, and there's nothing that anyone can say to sway them or to knock sense into them.
Yeah, it's very clear that we are living in separate realities, right? Like just completely segregated views of what is real. Yeah, because to your point, I mean, no, I don't think any of the politicians are true believers, but his supporters definitely are, right? They are, and the underdog thing. I mean, people who are like, I mean, the joke is economic uncertainty, right? But people who are in the lower middle class want somebody to feel like they want to be able to fight, right? They want to fight somebody, and they get to punch down and feel better about themselves and feel like they're fighting this righteous battle, to kind of restore what America was supposed to be for them, missing the entirety of the picture. But
right, because if you stop fighting, and then if you're wrong, then what have you been doing this whole time, right? It's almost like it has to be this because I always I've said, like, if you go to a Trump supporter and just get them to say, like, what if you're wrong? What if this is just a very authoritarian like president who lies constantly and is pushing the rails of democracy out of selfishness, and there was no election fraud. Like, what if that is a reality? What how would you feel if somehow that just became, you could 100% know that, how would you feel about the actions you've taken? And I feel like, how do you not look at yourself as, treasonous? You know what I mean? Like, how do you not take how does it not flow there? Right. So it's like, you can't go there because that can't possibly be the case, because then I'd be a traitor to America,
yeah, absolutely. Like you are supporting, this kind of undemocratic, I mean, functionally coup. It's interesting, like, and I think if you look at, well, what if there was, you ask the same question of Democratic supporters, right? What if there was election fraud and you are like supporting this treasonous person? Like, my answer would be like, well, they should all fucking go to jail. Like, all of them.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward, right? Like, I don't.
Right. I feel like,
yeah, I just don't think there's the same level of dissonance.
yeah, right. If the people I believe are the truthful ones are not the truthful ones, they should pay a hefty price for it, and that's it. So
Yeah,
you won't ever hear that from the Trump side. So
kind of on that same thread, and not to change topics too much, but what do you make of this whole Hunter Biden investigation now going on? Because that's something that they are now latching onto as like, see, it's finally coming to fruition. He is bad. Joe knew about it. Joe helped it happen, and finally,
how does Joe Biden help his son cheat on taxes? Like, what is the narrative there?
I thought it was more than that. Wasn't it about? Maybe I'm getting my stories mixed up, but I thought it was about when Joe was a VP, having China deposit money into one of his accounts or something like that.
That was a while ago, right? This new one is like about tax evasion.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Which if he is guilty of tax evasion, he should either go to jail or pay whatever the penalty is for that level of tax evasion. Right. Yeah, it's not a great look for Joe Biden, but that's purely an optics look, right? I don't think that is a
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't think he had anything to do with his son evading taxes. If his son winds up in jail because of it, yeah, it's not a good look if a sitting president is, has a son in prison.
But
that's not great.
It's far worse if your kids are in government and financially exposed to foreign investors and actively influencing policy. Like
not the optics of it aren't. Right, the optics of like Joe Biden giving Hunter Biden, excuse me, a role in the White House would look better than if Hunter Biden's in jail. Right, because if you're in jail and like you're guilty, you're just fucking guilty. There's no like, or there's a much smaller like kind of denial that people can have about that guilt. Right. Whereas with the Trump family, it's a pretty easy leap to make that how could they be criminals? They're working in the White House for the government. Right.
Oh, you
like,
mean, yeah. That's fair. I guess I just meant, if all of these investigations come forward and reveal all of this, it's far more meaningful and impactful to the government, but obviously it won't get the attention of Biden's son, who's not connected in the government, having these problems. That's all.
Yeah. I also think if Hunter is convicted and goes to jail, that Biden pardons him on his last day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing, Trump will make the norm.
80 years old. Yeah, 80 years old. Like, what the fuck does he care?
Yeah, what are you gonna do to me? I'm getting my son out of jail, right?
Yeah.
If anything, Trump will make, by the time this happens with Hunter, it'll be like, well, he only pardoned one family member as opposed to 4, and God knows what kind of pardon he's going to try and come out with like anyone who's ever done a deal with me ever pardoned, like whatever he tries to pull.
Yeah, they really need the pardon power has to be adjusted. It's too absolute and it's too untested. Right, so nobody knows where the line is.
And also, I mean, abused as well. I mean, and it happens on both sides. This is something that actually happens on both sides. Like on the last day of every president's day, there's always like hundreds of pardons that they give out, right?
You have Mark Rich from the Clinton administration, right? His business partner got pardoned.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what that doesn't sound right. I mean, Republican or Democrat, like that doesn't that doesn't sound like a good thing. I mean, if somebody was worth pardoning, why wait until your last day? Like, right? Like, why?
I think because any pardon is going to come with political backlash. Like, it's hard to have an apolitical viewed pardon mostly. And
yeah, a substantial amount of those pardons aren't
like personal
right?
at
all.
Yeah, like Obama commuted a ton of Like I thought like drug sentences for people, like there's in theory some good. It's just that the potential for impropriety is just so easy that like even putting a wall of like 1 or 2 removed connections from a pardon at least would be something. Like, if you said you can't have a direct business relationship or personal relationship with that person or that person that they know, it becomes far harder. They can still happen, they can be bad, but it limits it, right?
Yeah, and there are some good uses for it, right? Like you have Andrew Johnson pardoning all Confederate soldiers.
Yeah, that was and that's one of the reasons
right?
that they
to
wanted
allow
it.
reunification.
Yeah, kind of important there. You kind of had to do that. You couldn't just be like, what are we gonna do with these traitors, boys? Let's figure it out. Like, they're not coming back if that's the line.
Right. And I wasn't suggesting that all pardons on the last day are nefarious or anything like that. I feel like there's something wrong with the system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That needs to be a thing.
Like all things built that founders were like, we have higher principles and no one would ever. It's like, well, but what if they did? And then we're finding out all of those now. So in some ways, if you want to find a silver lining to Trump with all the bad, he's highlighting all of them with a highlighter marker, right? Like he's going through every single norm and being like, you should probably create things around this in the future.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of game theory in the late 1700s when they were writing the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, well,
I mean the preferred way or the way of combat of their mother country was to line up straight against your opponents and fire your weapons and not move.
yeah. When can we go back to the dignity of firing with muskets in a line?
Yeah.
When when the gun control measures that we were talking about in Slack earlier go into effect, and you're not allowed to buy ammunition anymore.
I didn't watch.
You can have musket balls.
You can have musket balls.
You can have musket balls. You can have
Oh,
musket
that's your
balls
ammunition.
And black powder. Well, I was wondering, and I mean, people have speculated about this, right? Or made these jokes. Is that like cool? You can have all the guns you want, but like ammunition is now banned. Like, okay, enjoy your clubs.
Yeah, they look pretty.
Second Amendment says nothing about the right to bear bullets.
Yeah, the problem is though that there are so many bullets out there.
Oh yeah, no, it's not realistic. But it would help.
Yeah,
it would help. Yeah,
quite a bit.
Stopping the new stuff coming in. I mean, also when people feel like there's a scarce supply, they're not. Everyone gets more protective. Like, bullets become far more expensive, right? Like it becomes just another part of considering even using the thing. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like scarcity makes things cost prohibitive for your average criminal. Like that's the idea behind like gun control, right? Like having severe penalties for guns isn't to get rid of all guns. You'll never get rid of all guns. It's just that the cost of it, because they are scarce, is so high that most people can't pay it, right? If you are like just looking to go rob something or looking to go shoot somebody, like you can't pay them the amount of money that it costs to get a gun.
Sure.
But like collectors can, right? You go if they go through legal channels, they're not that expensive. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so like even incremental progress in gun control is actually really, really helpful for reducing the like gun crime rate.
Yeah, well, not according to their argument. If you can't prevent all of it, then it's not worth preventing any of it.
Yeah,
dude, I want to use that. I want to use that argument with immigration. I want to use that argument with immigration. Like, what, hey, if you can't stop everyone from coming into this country illegally, then you might as well not stop anyone. Like as long as someone can swim to Florida or somewhere, if I can prove someone got in illegally, like from Canada, honestly, we should just open up all the borders. What's the point?
Should open up all the borders.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't care that much. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of it just you know, it is not the wave of crime and disaster that people seem to think it's going to be. But
Anybody who is willing to go through the process of trying to get into the United States illegally to have a better life, I'm pretty okay with them being here.
yeah, I mean, that's got to be worth at least like a bachelor's. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So
Well, and like you have like that, the big thing was like the caravans, right? From South and Central America. Like fucking somebody walks for 1,200 miles. They get it. Like that's the rules. Like you wanted to be in so bad that you walked for 1,200 miles.
with apparently packing drugs like the whole time.
Well, honestly, I kind of want to
water. Like
I kind of want to give them my place here because like I would never do that. Like,
So are you saying that the ticket to cross the border would be your Fitbit history?
absolutely, your pedometer.
Yeah.
you start walking.
Did you cross 500,000 steps to get here?
You're a citizen. Yay. Like a little
solve the obesity problem.
would.
That's true.
Would be really messed up if we made it so you had, in order to keep citizenry, you had to do that kind of shit. You're like, hey, get your 5,000 steps in this month, or
Yeah,
pack your
I feel
bags,
like,
Johnny.
I feel like to open the borders, which I wouldn't be against either, would have to go hand in hand with also decriminalizing drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you couldn't have one without the other without issues.
No, but so here's the unintended sad part about decriminalizing drugs. Fucking the like Colombian submarine, like the Colombian naval fleet of drug submarines is amazing. And like I never want to stop having YouTube videos of like the Coast Guard pulling up to this like, submarine that's made out of like a bathtub and a whole bunch of Campbell soup containers. That
No, they're pretty sophisticated.
yeah, some of them are really sophisticated, but there's some that are so janky.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, and even like I love both sides of that spectrum.
Like the ingenuity you're saying,
Yeah,
like of
absolutely.
just
Well,
like
well, I remember I watched a documentary at one point, and the Colombians were hiring, the cartels were hiring Russian Cold War submarine scientists or engineers to basically build their submarines for them.
they're like,
Yeah,
we got
those were bathtubs and Campbell soup containers,
The
but they
engineers-
just made them look like they weren't. Like
they brought those engineers over, like, all right, so what do you have to work with? How much steel? They're like, we got 400 bathtubs. And they're like, so they're like, what? How can you make this look like a submarine? They're like, we can paint it gray. I don't.
Soup cans.
You're the scientist. Figure it out. It's like, what do you think I can do with this? You're just a bunch of Sean Connerys. That's what you are. So, yeah, that's that is really.
He was Scottish, not Russian, Jim.
yeah,
Honestly-
no Caterpillar drives on the Colombian.
Okay, where's your
Cartel,
Caterpillar
baby.
drive? Go make us a Caterpillar drive. What? That was in the movies. Your accent's wrong, by the way. You don't sound anything like the Russians I've heard. It's like, that guy was Scott. Yeah. I would love to do all of that. And then to Will's point, I would love to create a Colombian submarine buyback program and put them in a museum somewhere. Be like, I'll give you $500 if you just give us that thing, because that thing is incredible. We need to store that somewhere.
It's a very specific cash for clunkers program.
Yeah, catch for subbers.
I'm pretty sure those would not survive out of water. You wouldn't be able to put them in a museum. They would collapse.
It would have to like have like a sink, like I guess you don't call it float or sink. What do you call it? Subtest? A subtest? I don't know. Like, what do you call it when it's not sinking or floating? I guess it's technically floating.
Dry dock test. I don't know.
No, like
I
a
mean,
subtest. Put it
like-
underwater. Let it go like 10 meters down and hang it 10 meters.
I think they still call that seaworthy.
Okay, seaworthy. They'd make it a seaworthy test. You're like, all right, it passes. Here's $500. It's going in the museum.
No, most of them don't actually go underwater fully. They can't, because they don't have, like, they have to have like exhaust and shit like that. So they're most of them are like just this much above water, And it's really funny because like the videos, the Coast Guard will like just jump on top of it, and like they'll be driving alongside, and then like the Coast Guard like jumps on top and like knocks on the hatch. And it's like, asshole, like we're here, fucking stop.
Like keep going. It's probably
Yeah, I feel like the balls you would have to jump on a drug cartel submarine and bang on the top for them to open.
Hey, Bruce, what do you think they like? Do you think they have room in there to like like? I feel like it can just fit someone in there, and that's it. It's not like you're gonna jump into a cabin with like that has space for like 20 people. It's gonna be like a guy like huddled in there with a bunch of bags of something, you know, like, and that's it. That's all it is, right? What is he gonna do? Well, that's funny. I would like to. I would like to see that someday.
I mean, you're traveling with $100 million of drugs. Got to protect it somehow, but I guess they don't. I don't know.
Yeah, the bathtub and the cans. That's protected. Like, what is a gun gonna do at that point? That's the question. Like, okay, yeah, you have a gun. Now what? You gonna get someone with that? Like what? You know, you're still in a tub in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah,
like all they have to do is drive away and just, you know what I mean? Like, there's just what's your options at that point? You don't shoot yourself out of that.
Yeah, with a U.S. military vessel,
right
alongside you.
Right, like, show me the plan here, buddy. Okay.
We dare you. We dare you to shoot at us.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. 1 sec.
All right. Yeah, that would be fun. So the next thing I want to talk about, I'll wait for Will on that part, but
have you ever got? You're not going to play Cyberpunk?
Dude, I don't have a PS5.
You have a computer.
Dude, my computer is not a gaming computer.
Oh, can't do that.
I can play Roblox. I could play StarCraft 2. I couldn't play any. It's got like an i5 in there. Like it's not a, you know, it'd probably be okay if I threw a good graphics card in there, but I haven't. So, but I've played a bunch of Roblox with Maddie on there, and Roblox is one of my topics. So because it's an interesting game, I probably have more experience on what it is, I guess. Than I don't. Do you know Roblox? Do you like know what it is and what it does?
My kids play it. I know a little bit. Talking to Dave, Dave's kind of the expert on it, just because there are elements of it that we wanted to parrot in a game that we were thinking of making.
So I played a bunch of it. Like I've probably got 30 hours or 40 hours in Roblox. So to switch topics, we're gonna hit some other Trumpian political stuff later, but just because it's got me on here, Roblox IPO'd or filed an S1, I should say, hasn't IPO'd yet, right?
Right.
Releasing financials and claiming that this year they ran to a 33 million active user count, which is impressive as all hell. Revenues of a $500 million, and rough math of over expenses, it's $250 million in profit this year. And it's actually it's really impressive for a gaming company to do that. That's incredibly strong financials in my opinion. That's wild. Now the game itself, and I'll do this like the whole, in case whoever's listening doesn't know, but it's kind of like a open world design with some interesting twists, right? So one part I find really interesting is the graphics are kind of feel like a Minecraft, like a low res graphics, but they're not polished. They're incredibly blocky and they're incredibly like jarring to some degree. The skins and everything, like imagine playing a game that felt like a bunch of MySpace pages. You know what I mean? It is the customization doesn't have any filter or attempt to make it look good, because everyone can do anything as far as customization. So you get some really incredibly looking models that people build, and then some incredibly low, like nothing, look terrible models that people build, and it's all mixed together. And even objects in a game you join, you can have some incredibly simplistic, low, no definition objects next to some beautifully defined objects, and it's just very, it's weird to have like that juxtaposition happen in real time, because all of these games are ultimately just designed by people who made games, and then in those games you have some path to do something, and these games are never well developed, or almost never. There's a handful of ones that are well developed, but most of them are games people started to make, they opened it up into beta, and then they just stopped development on it, or the development's so slow because it's like one person, you know. And sorry, what were you gonna say? Something?
Yeah, I mean, maybe so before you jump into that part of it, like what I don't know anything about Roblox.
Yeah.
Like what is it like? So my understanding from this, what you just said, is that it's essentially like a game development platform that also is the game itself. So
Yes.
like it's a game that is very, very easy to mod.
Well, so there is no game outside of what you do. So for
Yeah,
example,
it's a user scripted sandbox game.
yes.
So users create the content. Like they can create like a pizza shop where you can work the pizza counter and make pizzas.
And how do they create this content?
So that's sorry, but that's the part that I know a little bit about, and not to jump in, Jim,
Yeah,
but
like there's very easy to use editors to go and create maps, to then add logic,
Okay.
all
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
so the thing that they do well, and that's kind of their competitive edge, is they have a really rich and easy to use scripting language, essentially, that allows user generated content, and that's kind of what makes them Roblox, because they have a really big community, and their community is constantly pumping out these modules, or whatever you want to call them, this content that players can then go and play, and it attracts a lot of kids, because like there's like my kids play it, like there's like a what do they call it, there's like a god tycoon game that they play
Yeah, so there's different like there's different game styles. One is tycoon. Tycoon is the build up something, right? But the build up games, there's little to no, there's predeterministic logic to the game that you basically can't pass. Like it's almost a straight line to the end. So if you're building a wizard tower, you step on something and it starts making wizard trinkets, and then your cash goes up, and then there's 400 other things you can eventually step on, each one of them becoming
So it's a 3D clicker game?
no, well, that's one style. There's a lot of different ones. But those are tycoons. So like there's like tens of thousands of games. And not only that, people offer premiums inside the game. So just like you want the fun hat, you want the cool toy, you pay actual Robux, which do translate into money.
And can you take those assets between different games?
No.
So like, can you use the same avatar?
No, there's like a general, I think, subscription you can pay that gets you like you get this higher level tier on games when you join them, but every game has their own cash that you can spend that doesn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is how I know that I'm old, because this makes no fucking sense to me.
So but the games, none of them are fully developed. Like there's a game called like
Oh
High
yeah,
School.
it all seems super janky, and like, so why would anybody do this?
Well, I think they hit to that your kids playing these games, if they play for a couple hours, they'll bounce between 15 or 20 different ones. So the collection of that time is just hopping around to different things you want to do, because so it almost, even like to a degree, like imagine getting like 8 kids together. The idea that 8 kids want to play one game for 2 hours is kind of hard at sometimes. So you end up just bouncing around constantly. And some of them are pretty well developed. Like some of them, someone literally built a replica of Universal Studios, and I'm shocked at how well they made it, right? And you're like, this must have been hundreds and hundreds of hours. But the game is walking around Universal Studios and going on rides. That's it. Like there's nothing else to do.
Yeah,
so I think the big thing is bouncing around, what Jim touched on. Like my kids play some of the games, and like they, like in this god tycoon game, they got the ability at one point to like shoot lightning bolts like Zeus, and Isaac was showing me how to do it, and he was like shooting people and killing them, and I was like, and it was like so janky and low quality. I was like, this game looks so bad, and he's like, yeah, but look, I can shoot lightning, and he does that. And then he was done with it, and then he played a different one. And
Yeah.
like,
That's it. And
Yeah.
and like, there's no winning any of these games. Like even the games that have like a path of succession, you hit the end and the game doesn't know what to do. It's just you hang out.
Well, now I'm watching a YouTube video of like a 4-year-old streaming Roblox.
Oh yeah, no, there's
Which,
tons of streamers, which comes with the whole ripple effect of like the Twitch streaming and like Patreon and all that kind of stuff, right? So like it's just another thing to stream. And some of the actually no, let me add one more thing. A lot of the games you save your state. So if you do a tycoon game, that might take like 80 hours to get to like the end tier, which again doesn't mean anything at the end, right? They just haven't built more on top of it. When you come back, you're still at that state. So you can always be building up a lot of little games at the same time.
yeah, this is a clicker game.
Right, but there's also one that's like a hide and seek. They have this game called Piggy, where like people come in and one person's the murderer, and they have to and murdering because the graphics like it's walking over them. That's it. That's all it is. It's just walking over them, and then they're dead. And like they'll do these like each night. You know, a bad person will come in from a different angle, and they all have to run around, and they have to like run through exits. So like they have this. They recreated a Counter-Strike. It's called Arsenal. It's literally Counter-Strike.
So who develops these things?
The people. It's all just individual people.
You know, I understand that, right? But like at some point you would think that, okay, well this is supposed to be like community generated content, right? And then you can like cash in via whatever, you know, microtransaction system they have.
Yep.
But at some point, like if they're doing, you know, $500 million worth of revenue a year, like actual tiny game studios would want to develop within this world, right, and make something much higher quality.
Well, your competition is so many games are out there. I don't know if the higher game development people would bother because like you don't know if it's going to grab traction or not. Like, isn't that a big risk in some way?
Yeah, but I think that's a risk of any game anyway, right?
That's
This
fair.
at least has a huge user base.
Yeah, I think that 500 million is a lot for one game company, but I mean that's a small portion of the gaming industry total. So my guess would be that Roblox probably attracts a lot of like single single devs that go and try to develop and try to make an income for themselves. But
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm wondering, right? Is it like, you know, a whole bunch of teenagers like, you know, learning how to code and at home and in
A lot of
school
it feels like that.
and building this, or is it like, you know, somebody like Habers who is a professional developer?
it's a mix. I'm sure it's a mix, but I think that the vast majority of them are untrained, you know, poor developers or bad developers that just create crap. Like there's a lot of crap on there.
Yeah. And there's enough of a baseline that you can get to a pretty good state of and when you're comparing it to the games that literally like there's some games I forget to call it, but there's literally not even a plot to anything. It's just a game you're designed to ramp up the graphics because they put a ton of textures and detail into something, and you walk around and it's this like village in the woods, and it just looks pretty, and that's the whole thing. And they'll be like, and you know what, Maddie will be like, now we're gonna role play, and you can like turn into a dragon and fly around, but there's nothing to do. There's like no interaction, there's no quest. You just pretend to be
at some level that might be like a healthier game, right, where you still have to like use your creativity.
Well, I honestly I think it spawns a ton. So like there's one of the main games is like Roblox, I forget the name of it. It's like Roblox City. And I think this might be an in-house developed game because it seems to have the most development. I don't think it's outside, but you can go to work and you can buy all these things for your house, and you can make different houses, different walls, like all these like hyper little customizations that you wouldn't see in Minecraft. Like there's a million of them, and she's always building and rebuilding structures in the game. Like she literally she'll make a restaurant. She has no mechanism to sell anything, but if she does that and she makes it look like a restaurant, and she puts up a sign that says this is what we sell because you can like make food in the game, people will who are in that like server with her, because you can maybe fit like 50 people in a server. People drive around and look at other people's stuff. They'll show up and they play along. She'll be like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Come into Maddie's," and they'll be like, "Great." And she'll be like, "Table for two," and they're like, "Say yeah. What do you want?" They'll literally and they'll give her in-game dollars for food that they could just go make themselves. So like, there's this kind of interesting, they all jump in kind of moment, and I'm watching it play out, and I'm like, holy crap, like this is, it's kind of genuine. It's kind of it's pretty cool when I see that, right?
Is
So
is, is Maddie making money?
No. This isn't the Robux. This isn't the charge premium. This is like the easy dollars that, like, this is the currency that everyone just gets, for doing stuff.
So the user base, like, what is the average age of this? Is this like 12 and under?
It has to be. It has to be.
I would guess it's very young. Yeah.
Yeah, like to Andrew's point, probably like 4 to. It'd be hard to see anyone keeping with this after 15, 16. I don't see it. I feel like it's 8 to 12 is probably your highest range.
Yeah. Sorry, this was probably a bad topic because I'm so completely ignorant to it. So I'm asking a lot of dumb
No,
questions.
I don't think it matters. No, it's good. It's just, it's interesting to me that this incredibly low res, like janky looking thing just completely blew up, and it kind of goes against a lot of what I think would be successful, and that's why it's interesting, right?
Yeah. So I mean, back to the kind of IPO of it. What do you think about that?
I mean, their user base grew something like 80% year over year. I feel like there's a cap, but what is Roblox? What is their operational costs? It's just keeping servers up. Like you're maybe adding in base functionality, but your development is completely offloaded, and you're making a cut off the top of it. It's a really interesting model, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess my question would be like, how do they monetize this further to kind of increase that value, right? And especially if it's like a thing for a really young audience, which I'm surprised that they pay it. Like, I'm surprised that, and maybe this is because I don't have kids, so I don't know like how common in-app purchases are for kids. But I can't see like the average user spending all that much money, and I can't see that there would be like a ton of whales in the same way that like mobile games have whales.
No, but I think that you may be missing the way that Roblox can grow. And think what Microsoft did with Minecraft. Think of merchandise. Like there's a lot of growth potential still, even though they have a really big niche market. Like,
Do you think Microsoft should have paid $2.5 billion for Minecraft?
I think that they've turned Minecraft into a cash cow that's worth much more than $2.5 billion.
Have they? I mean, I again, not having kids kind of
Minecraft has seen a huge resurgence in the at least in the streaming community.
Yeah, it is crazy the amount of content that's being created through Minecraft, and the amount of merchandise. Like we have a whole bunch of different plastic Minecraft things, swords, lanterns that glow, like all this stuff, and merchandise. I mean, that's where like a lot of the money is. They make bank on that. Yeah, Minecraft has done really well, and then they have multiple lines of Minecraft products, like digital gaming products that you can buy. There's like Minecraft Story Mode, different types of Minecraft Story Mode. There's like Minecraft mods that you pay for. Like my kids have like a Mario theme, or Mario. I don't even know how to pronounce that word anymore. Mario themed Minecraft skin for their game that came with like the Switch version. Yeah, it's huge.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, a quick Google says that 126 million people play once a month on Minecraft still.
Yeah, no, and it should be going up. Like the metrics have gotten high over the last. Like there was a dip for the last few, and then the last 2 or 3, it's been going back up. I think it's been like the major streamers are all pushing Minecraft again, which I think is I don't think they're driving it. I think they're the reaction to the popularity, right?
So yeah, somewhere. I don't know how valid this is, but apparently last year, or in 2018, Minecraft made $110 million in mobile sales.
It's not bad.
Yeah. So I mean, from like, is there any indication of like what their valuation is?
I mean,
Minecraft.
No, Minecraft is private at this point, so
I mean,
Right.
if they at a $500 million revenue, if they go
Or
public,
not private, but like rolled into a much bigger company. So you're never going to get Minecraft specific
right,
values.
right, they're never going to break it out. I mean, if you do standard, if they're doing a $500 million in revenue, 10x, 20x, you know, so 5 billion to 10 billion, probably,
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Minecraft
right?
just
Like when you look at the site, you're like, this is worth $5 billion, but you know, is that unreasonable? Like a 10x multiplier off of revenue on a software only company where you're not even paying developers, or your development to like where the development is effectively offloaded to the community, you know?
yeah. I mean, Minecraft just sold its 200. What was it? 200 millionth? 200 millionth copy. That is insane.
Oh, and that maybe that's a good point to the accessibility of it. Minecraft can literally be played everywhere because it's the graphics just don't work. I mean, you can tweak the graphics, but even then, it doesn't do a whole lot. Roblox has that same effect. Absolutely, like
So
anything can play it.
Interesting though, Microsoft's games division. Actually, never mind. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. Yeah, never mind. Sorry, I thought this would be interesting, and it's not.
It's not interesting.
Yeah, it's a shame that Dave's not here because Dave knows a whole lot about Roblox from being in the gaming industry and kind of offloaded a little bit of that to me, but I didn't retain a lot of it. I just know that they're unique because of their user accessible scripting language. That's pretty unique among pretty much all games and very easy to use.
That makes sense. So really interesting. So yeah, I'll I guess we'll kind of
So
stay.
I guess Microsoft total last year made like $3 billion in its games division total, which doesn't seem like a lot. That number might be wrong, but
Why not? Why would it be wrong?
Is that
because
revenue or profit or
revenue. So with with Xbox, with Minecraft, like with all of that, like their entire games division, like 3 billion seems pretty low.
No, that's profit though, probably.
No, it's revenue.
Really? PlayStation was 20 billion last year.
Yeah, so like I said, this number might be wrong.
Okay, but but PlayStation alone, like the console, made 2.5 billion last year. Because most of it is product, right?
Yeah, I mean that's probably Sony's games division.
Right. So
right?
they made, but their profit last year was 2.5 billion, and they said it was an increase from the year before. So Microsoft being 3 billion, if it's profit and not revenue, would probably make sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like Xbox has been holding its own over the years. So yeah.
I'm very curious as to what happens with the Roblox IPO. It will probably be valued at $200 billion because
it's going to overtake Facebook and
because nothing about the stock market makes sense right now.
Well, I've just a 5 to 10 billion seems like the likely range, right? I mean, that doesn't sound crazy. Yeah. A 10 to 20x multiplier off of was basically.
I'm planning to pick up a good amount of Roblox stock.
Yeah, I mean, you go have fun playing with the stock market because I still don't understand it, but because it's not like I can buy it at a cheaper price right now. Like it'll come out at that multiplier. So then you're kind of betting on what, like continued growth or something like that?
Yeah, essentially, or at least continued interest, continued speculation.
Sure.
Roll them dice.
Roll them havers. Yeah, how's your Bitcoin going? Hasn't that seen a resurgence?
Yeah, it's actually going down right now, but
but didn't it hit like really high again recently?
Yeah, it didn't quite break its all-time high, but it came within $100 of its all-time high, which
that's pretty incredible, honestly. So
19,500 about that spot.
And you know why it went down? Because everybody was like, "Well, no, we can't buy it at its all-time high," and then nobody was buying it. So so there was no market for it anymore.
Everyone trying to dump it 19,000. Like no sellers. Okay, all right. So I'll move off of this. Slightly, actually, I'll hop around a little. So Pfizer got FDA endorsement, I believe, today on their vaccine, and a story came out. I don't know if it was earlier this week or last week on the number of doses we got. So the story is that Pfizer had up to 500 million, or at least that was a number I think that we could have bought. The minimum was 100 million, and we were given first pick across all the countries. I don't know how much of this is backed up by documents, but the Pfizer is claiming to some degree that the U.S. had the ability to effectively buy the whole thing if we wanted. And if we passed, they would then go to other countries, which they would then have a contractual obligation. So if we wanted more than 100 million, those orders would come in after they help those other countries, right? Like after everyone's effective pre-order. And I guess my question that I kind of put out there is can we consider Trump a business person at this point? Because this seemed to be a win on every front to soak up as much of those as possible with what I can't understand to really be any downside. And yet it's like even when a win falls on his feet that says just buy them, no one would ever fault you for something that showed high promise and was going through all the trials great. You know what I mean? Like it was just like and the money, I doubt that money is going to be a drop in the bucket, even though 500 million compared to the bailouts we're doing. The idea that this was somehow ever could have been seen as a loss to just, take a significant portion, if not the whole 500 million, I find strange. Like, could you imagine any other business person looking at that and saying, we're going to pass?
I mean, it's not a business decision. I think, like, well, I mean,
a business person who then became president, like with their business skills. That's what I mean. You know what I mean? Like I do business, like I business better than everyone else, right?
Obviously, Trump is not a good businessman, right? But this isn't a business decision. This is a, helping people decision, and that's not really his strong suit.
But like even politically, I don't see the downside to going big on a vaccine that every report was saying was looking extremely positive. Like I think they offered this when there was a 90% certainty that this was going to complete through the trials. It wasn't in February and they offered it. It was after a lot of initial testing where there was extremely positive signs that this was going to make it. It just feels like it's a slam dunk from every single angle. And the business person aspect of it, you would think that, I don't know, maybe they'd even be, if being a business person is supposed to help you be a better president, you'd think that, it would make even more sense. I don't understand the angle of not.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the angle was that that they didn't want to. Well, I think this was in the article, right? They didn't want to commit to paying for a vaccine that they didn't know was going to work, right?
Yeah, but that's one of those things that's like super myopic, right? Because the quote is that they're not going to sign a deal that would give Pfizer $10 billion to buy a vaccine that might not work,
which is a drop in the bucket.
Well, that's the thing. It's like $10 billion is nothing.
Right, but they spread it out though, right? So they're buying 100 million doses from Moderna as well, which is coming out in the next 2 weeks. Overall, I think that they've put down money to buy 500 million doses. They're just from 5 different pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, I don't think that this is actually like the biggest problem, right? But if I was, and there is like a world in which the United States buying all of the vaccine is not that good, right? That like you need to spread this around the world. But I think that it's one of those things that we should have bought as much as we reasonably could. And you just take the risk. And if you wind up with extras, you send that someplace else. It's worth the $10 billion. It's worth $100 billion. I mean, how much money is the economy losing right now?
Right. Right. Like the it, I get your point, Will. There's a morality to taking up all of them, but that's, I guarantee you that wasn't Trump's concern of the other countries, right? When he passed on that, and
No,
he
but it was an argument that the left was making, right? About like when Trump was trying to buy the rights to I don't know if it was the Oxford vaccine, but there were a couple of vaccines that showed a lot of promise in Europe
Right.
early, and Trump was trying to buy, or the Trump administration was trying to buy the rights to those vaccines so that the United States would own the rights to them.
Right.
well, that's like to profit off of it.
Well, it's to control it, right? And maybe to profit off of it, but still, like the left had a huge issue with that.
I
I mean, I think I think that this is there's many things to be angry about and disappointed. I don't think that this is one of those. I mean, they essentially hedged their bets, right? Like they didn't put all of their money in one bucket. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing.
I would put all the money in all the buckets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
like we're not hurting for funds, and like, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think this is actually a bad thing. But I would
I think that the thing that this does bring up that is a bad thing or is an issue is the bottleneck of our system of basically not sharing this vaccine, or at least the you know the secret sauce of being able to manufacture it, because as a result there are a lot of countries that are going to get 0 doses. So pretty much like any third world country is not going to get any vaccine, and a lot of them are sounding alarms. And this is a topic that I actually don't know much about, but I was listening to an NPR story this morning about it. Apparently there's some vaccine consortium that's like all about sharing information, and right, like that doesn't happen with this. So as a result, like we're bottlenecked with what we can produce. It's all coming from one source, and poor countries don't even get the opportunity to buy it.
if we can eminent domain people's land to build a fucking border wall or a Walmart or a Home Depot, then we should go to Pfizer and be like, yeah, the United States owns that now, and here's $50 billion or whatever the fair market value is for this. And now the United States owns the rights to it, and we're just going to produce enough for the world.
Right.
Like that's what should happen.
But not in the Trump way of buying for 50 billion and then
oh yeah, no profit on it.
Right. That's where I think the Trump motive always was, because he's incredibly transactional, right?
Yeah, this is a greater good thing, right? Like, the United States has the economic capability of doing this,
right?
And not many other places do.
Right.
And like, I don't think Pfizer shouldn't be compensated for their work. Like, of course they should. But I don't like the idea that Pfizer gets to determine, production and costs of these things.
Right. Like this is, sorry, we're pulling the too important card. We're just going to take over. You're going to be compensated fairly. And it's not like your big gigantic payday you wanted, but like you did one for the country. Like, go run your PR campaign talking about that. And we'll throw some money towards that because you deserve it. But we're going to go take this and we're going to go give it to the rest of the world.
Salk gave away his polio vaccine.
Yeah. And the thing is, it benefits everybody. Like it indirectly, it's not like it's not even self-serving. It's still self-serving to the United States to want everyone else to be vaccinated as well.
No, I mean, there's a level of degree of like even some kind of, you could argue some level of imperialism that ends up happening when we do that kind of crap too. But like we gain unparalleled amount of favor and that couldn't then be used negatively later. But
well, even beyond that, right? Like even beyond kind of the realpolitik sort of, we have done you this thing, and now you will help us when we ask because you owe us one.
Right.
Even beyond that, right? Just having the rest of the world vaccinated
Oh, it's an overwhelming good.
just allows economies to restart. So we can
Right.
just be selfish from like a financial standpoint of we're not going to make money on the vaccine, but we're going like the economy is going to do so much better because this is no longer a threat because everything can go back to normal.
Right.
I feel like all these things are some things that our government could be doing and they're not. I feel like they can do this if they wanted to. But then we also get to the
broad
point,
power for that.
yeah, and you know, if you flip it to any other president, I don't think we would have the case count and all that kind of stuff. So we wouldn't even be in like, in theory, we should be way better off as a country. We should still be buying a bunch of them and aggressively distributing them, and maybe even taking over production if it wasn't adequate enough. But I don't know. It's kind of a shitty situation. I just feel like any attempt like that from the Trump administration was purely incredibly selfish. Like somehow, I bet you Trump thought that if America bought a vaccine and sold it and made a ton of profit, I bet you in Trump's head he was going to somehow come away with a bunch of that. You know, like he had a path to that in his head, right?
Scalper.
Like I brokered the deal, so I get a finder's fee. Like he would write that shit into there, and you'd be like, "What do you mean the Trump admin has a 5% finder's fee on $2 trillion?" He's like, "Yeah, finder's fee." It's like, what? He's like, "Yeah, it's my company. They help broker the deal." It's like, oh, you mean and then Ivanka's walking around being like, we're the company that saved the world. It's like you brokered a finder's fee because your dad was you know what I mean? It'd be like the most blatant corruption ever in the world, and they would be praised forever. So, anyways, I guess I'm glad that that's not happening, but I don't know. That was just frustrating. But I get your point. So we'll get those, and hopefully, to your point, a bunch of other ones are building them. Maybe we'll get vaccinated. I'll hit this last one.
Looks like by April.
Is what?
That when the vaccines will be available broadly enough that
like even me and you could get them.
Yeah, that we would be able to get them.
Well, I don't think us. I think by April is when we're going to start seeing it for the general public, but there's still going to be general public phases where,
yeah, of course.
But April, I don't think that we're going to be seeing it.
Didn't Massachusetts?
Not kids. Kids are going to be the very last ones.
Didn't Massachusetts just release their plan? And their thing was like by April, 4 million people would be able to have vaccines. And they Massachusetts only has a population of like 6 million. So
that's impressive.
I must have missed that. I didn't see it.
Yeah, and that was kind of the information that I was going off of by April.
But like that starts to feel like it's broadly available if Massachusetts can get 4 million.
Yeah, like if 66%, 2/3 of Massachusetts can get vaccinated, that feels like it's a pretty good shot that we would be able to be vaccinated. And like, granted, I'm perfectly happy being the last person vaccinated. Like, I am far too comfortable sitting in my fucking apartment and never leaving.
Yeah, I think that vaccinating 4 million people in 4 months is very aggressive, and I don't think it would ever happen.
You just fly over Boston and you drop needles out of a plane.
I mean, you'll get some percentage of Boston to take those, right?
Yeah.
Dana's going through logistics now of how to vaccinate. So they have 60,000 people that they need to vaccinate that are employees or healthcare workers or just
frontline workers.
They're different phases, right? And we were talking through it, and she was rattling off numbers. I was like, hold on, let me do that math. So you're going to vaccinate 200 people per minute, or at one point I forgot what the number was, but it was a crazy number. And she was like, yeah, I mean, that's where we're planning to be. I'm like, that sounds very aggressive. Like, that's going to be.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have a whole bunch of like distribution centers or like vaccination centers or whatnot, and you just have people coming in to get their shot.
Dude, you have them line up next to you face to face, and you just do 2 at a time at the same time. Okay.
Middle out.
Middle out. You do middle out.
The other interesting logistical issue is that I think 10% of people are get fevers for 1 to 2 days. And the policy, healthcare policy, is that if you have a fever, you have to basically quarantine for 2 weeks, or you have to get tested and basically be out of work for at least a week or something like that. So rolling it out to healthcare workers, they can't just give, an entire ward of nurses the vaccine in a day, because they can't risk that ward being out because they all get fevers. So they even have to stagger, like they have to look at where people work and then stagger those people in that office as well.
Sure.
There's a lot of logistics that seems like a lot of work. That's
And
going
hopefully
in.
a lot of smart, competent people are all figuring out and making it better. So
I just read that like something like 70% of nurses have not been tested for COVID yet. Like some insane amount of like frontline workers.
but doesn't that just mean that they haven't shown symptoms, or do you think like the policy should have been they should have been getting regular tests and they haven't
They
been?
should have been getting fucking regular tests.
Yeah.
They should have been like once a week at least. They should have been getting tested, right?
Considering how really the test isn't that hard to get. I mean, regardless of how accurate it is, it's better than nothing. So
Yeah.
all right, well, let me hit onto this thing. So maybe this more goes to not so much COVID, but I can't pull up.
Sorry, there's somebody driving a fucking like backhoe the wrong way down Hamilton, which is like a pretty busy road, and I don't understand what's going on at all, because there's no other construction vehicles except this fucking gigantic backhoe.
Dude, that guy definitely just took it. He's like,
Yeah,
this is
it's
mine
like
now.
that's really what it seems like.
Right, I'm gonna use this for a few hours. I'll bring it back
Well,
later.
Because he's also dragging something because it's so loud.
He doesn't know how to work it. The arm's just dragging behind.
And there's still cars going the other way. Like, I don't understand what's going on right now. You're going to see like flashing lights.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
They're going to call the cops, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Chill out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Chill out.
you. I was just very confused.
No. So the COVID thing, frankly, I don't know if you saw this. Someone posted this to me, but the New York City rent is the lowest it's been in 10 years. It's like 2010 levels. I think that'll probably start to creep back up in April. So I actually might try and find a place a month or two ahead. And maybe I'm not the smart guy. Maybe everyone's thinking that, but I don't think everyone's thinking that. I think I might be able to catch something in like February-ish timeframe and lock in a pretty decent rate. Anyways, that's personal note. So, but going to the COVID thing. So even saying that we eventually over the next year get through this, I remember reading articles that they said that this type of thing being created in environments like that with global economies and how things are distributed, this will be like a thing that comes every this cycle is likely to become more frequent, basically.
Time out. Before we even get to that, you said once COVID goes away, it's not going. You realize that there's like 30% of the population that wants to get vaccinated right now, right? Like we're not going to stop masking when we go out for at least I don't even know when, but 2 years out, we're still going to be masking.
But I mean, like the economy will, I assume, functional, and we will be working, and for the most part, doing a lot more of what we used to do.
It'll be different, but there are businesses that aren't going to come back. I don't think that we're going to have theaters anymore. Like I don't think that's a business that's going to come back. But even a year after the vaccine, like
I feel like people could make the argument. I'll just get to the point. Like I feel like people could make the argument that once things are enough back to normal and like restaurants are being used, obviously the ones that didn't all go under, and we see the demand for all of this stuff, events. Do you see that anyone could then, there's plenty of data out there that suggests that another thing like COVID, assuming that this thing doesn't keep finding ways to mutate or do something crazy, is not crazy in the next 3 to 5 years. Like these things could just become more of a regular problem, right? And hopefully the U.S. would tolerate it better. We'll wear masks sooner. We'll social distance faster, and we'll limit the issue. But if you have a business which model says you have to be able to stock up cash to be able to handle no business for months at a time every few years, it's like, can these even be projected as like viable business models going forward?
Yeah, Yeah, I would say no. I think that we're going into a new a new phase for our
For like entertainment. I mean, this is like sports, conventions, like, you know, convention centers can't just not hold
yeah.
conventions.
I don't think that
You know,
I
they can't do that.
right. I think that large indoor social gatherings are going to be taboo and probably not great business models. Like I I, I don't know. I was thinking the other day even like it's so strange to think of pre-COVID and getting a cold and going into work and like sneezing and like rubbing my nose and using a tissue and like and not being masked. Like that seems so gross to me now, and I can't believe that that used to be the norm. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like moving forward, like I don't know. What we've been talking about in my office, and I know this is very anecdotal, but I'm sure that other companies are having um, similar conversations. Is that like what makes sense for us? I think will be flexible office spaces where, you know, like a place to meet once a month, maybe like a week out of the month, we would go and work there, and then work from home the rest of the time because um, or maybe it's like once a week we would meet there. Some kind of plan like that where we don't need dedicated office spaces, but like having a conference room with a whiteboard is very helpful occasionally. Um, but other than that, like you know, we're able to do what we need to do. The places the place where we struggle is basically whiteboard, like whiteboarding sessions. That's it's a challenge not having those.
So I'm a little bit more, I guess, bullish on things going back to normal. And like, I don't think that every industry is going to come back completely. Um, but I think that most of them will. I think we underestimate how badly people want things to go back to normal. Um, so like concerts and movies, like I still think theaters are going to exist. I don't think this is going to put theaters out of business. Like maybe they'll become more niche and the business model might change a little bit, but like they'll still exist, I believe. um conventions I think can go either way, right? Where it's I think companies are seeing how much money they're saving by not hosting them. um and that's really the driver, not that like it's taboo for people to be gathered. um but I think that as things go back to normal, a lot of like office space people are going to want to be back in their offices. The managers who still want people to report to the office are still going to want people to report to the office. Like that's not going to go away. And like for our industry, there's always been a lot of flexibility from work from home, and that'll continue, and maybe that'll get even broader. um, but I think for most people they're still going to be going into offices most of the time. Like I don't think WeWork is going to have like this huge surge in business because people realize that they don't need a ton of office space. um, does that make sense? Like,
Well, I don't know. I feel like WeWork is hurting just like everyone else because I don't.
no, I mean like at post COVID, right? To Andrew's point of
Yeah,
like we
yeah,
only need a conference room once a week or
right,
once a month, right? So we don't need to be renting a floor of a building. We only need to be renting a conference room from where we work
right.
for
Yeah,
one
but you
week a
don't come
month.
in just for the conference room. You come in and work out of there for the day. So it's like I don't like I feel
But you
like
know what I mean?
yeah, but I feel like that's a flexible like you're talking about like there's a burst of space needed, but any type of large company can just be like, hey, this group comes in on Tuesdays, this group comes in on Wednesdays, so it's a consistent amount of space needed, meaning the burst isn't as meaningful, right? Like my group comes in on Thursdays, we have full run of the office, and it's being used every day. It's just by different groups. I don't think that'd be terribly hard to do. But the overall net amount of space needed, I think, could drop. Like I was talking to Renan from my company, and he's like, I'm like, what do you think is going to happen to all the corporate real estate? He's like, we're going to get a shit ton of condos and apartments in New York City over the next, a bunch of years. He thinks that,
Yeah, I can see that.
like a lot of them are going to be converted.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the value of huge offices in a place like New York City might be gone.
Or just reduced, right?
Yeah.
If
Well,
if you have like work from home 2 days out of the week, that's in
Well,
theory a
yeah,
40% reduction.
that's why I meant, like, that's why I said huge offices, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't need multiple floors.
Right, because it's 40% of the people aren't going to be there at any given time. Yeah.
But there's also a lot of industries that just can't do work from home, right? There's lots of industries that need to actually be going to work, but like, yeah, maybe, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, that office space isn't as useful.
Right. Isn't as valuable. And
Yeah.
and if you're trying to, especially right now, like how many people didn't renew their lease or back out of leases? I mean, these companies have to be hurting pretty heavily.
I'm actually amazed that Pure hasn't closed any offices.
I'm sure they were able to negotiate some kind of lower hold the space contract because no one was going to jump into there, but they had to, there had to have been a compromise there, right? Where the building's taking a cut. They have to be, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, but to your point, like I wonder, like sports, things
Sports
that have ever been done.
Sports aren't going away. Like,
I don't think sports are going away, but like the events that host them, how will they change? Like they've already been built, so it's hard to not justify the maintenance. But I guess maybe smaller things is maybe where I'm focused, because it's like you already have a stadium, but you need people to fill that stadium for that stadium to make sense. That stadium can't just be there for people to play on the field. Like it can't support itself if that's all it's doing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think that's a realistic thing. I think as soon as people are allowed to go back to sporting events, they will be going back to sporting events, and those things will be sold out again.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm pretty bullish on like how badly people want things to go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think that people do want to get back, and people will get back. The problem is that I think that we'll quickly realize that a 30% vaccination rate isn't going to prevent COVID outbreaks. Like nothing is going to change there.
Well, I think that
we're still going to have outbreaks, and hospitals are still going to get overwhelmed. There needs to be a what's it called? Education campaign that's going to take years in order to get our vaccination numbers up to above whatever percent we need to be able to function normally in big groups.
So again, this is where I'm bullish on people going back to normal, is that once people see that it is effective for certain, like, yeah, there is going to be a certain percentage of the population that is going to resist it very, very heavily, and some small percentage that will never get it. But I think there are a lot of people who are on the fence about it or don't trust it. And once they see that, like, there aren't any really serious side effects from it, and that it enables the world to go back to normal, they will be on board with taking it. Like, I think seeing people being not afraid and not worried will push people to go get it.
Yeah, but I think that you're forgetting that we already have those people without a vaccine, and we have a significant amount of people that are living their lives like they did pre-COVID, and there's no vaccine, and they're completely okay with that.
Yeah, but those people aren't saying that they won't take the vaccine. Like, a lot of those people will take the vaccine. They just also will live their life now, right? Those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
They're not, but yeah, I guess I don't know what that cross section looks like.
Yeah, we're gonna find out, aren't we?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's like,
a very vocal minority.
Yeah, I think 60+%. I think will get vaccinated.
I have a hard time thinking that people that are refusing to mask because they think that COVID is a flu and is harmless are going to take the time to vaccinate, or think that vaccinating is important. because really they would be vaccinating for somebody else, right? Like they're not worried about themselves. Clearly, they would be vaccinating to save somebody else, and they're already exhibiting through their behavior that they could give a shit about anybody else, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I mean,
That's my concern.
yeah, I think that's a valid point. Yeah, I'm a little bit more hopeful that as people see the efficacy of it, they come around pretty quickly.
And there'll be some corporate drivers, right? Like I could see a company instituting policy saying, you know, you can't come back to work until you get this. And
That's an interesting one, right? Because like, is that even legal?
we do it with schools and kids.
Yeah, but companies, like, you're not allowed to ask for medical history.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think any company is going to do that.
you're not allowed to ask for medical history. There's
Yeah,
Dude,
like,
even the hospital that Dana works at isn't even considering doing that. Like,
so you're saying
they
that
can't.
that you are legally allowed to work with an incredibly contagious, deadly disease, knowing it, and the company knowing it, and they can't do anything.
so the laws weren't written for this scenario.
Yeah, okay. But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, let's play some stupid extreme out. Like someone walks in with Ebola and they're like, I have it. I just killed by 5 people. I'm going to go to work today. Like, obviously the company can do something, right? Like, I feel like there's like, okay, so we know they can do that. So then like the question is, where's the line, right?
Well, the company is not even allowed to ask them if they have Ebola, right? The company is not allowed to ask you if you've taken if you've gotten the COVID vaccine. Like
that's
yeah, you're saying that the company could do something about it, but they can't. Like, I mean, if you came into work with Ebola, I don't think the company could do anything about that.
all right, then you tie some stimulus check to it or something. You figure out a way to get it to people. Like we do it for schools, and schools are government funded, and they can do it. Like we do something that's tied to the government, and incentive, and do a positive incentive for people to get it, and then we'll be fine, right? Like, then I don't know a way, because if you can't make corporations do it, like we can make. I'm sure we could get kids. Like it might be a hard push, and there'd be a lot of fighting, but I'm sure you could get it passed in public schools, right? Like it just seems to fall directly in line. Like it's like we have clear precedent. Everyone's used to it. Your kid can't show up next school year until they get this vaccine. Like how hard is that? It's literally just adding a vaccine to an already list and regulation or a restriction or whatever. And if you
another thing, another concern, which is why I'm not bullish, is because all of these vaccines so far require 2 doses and 20 plus days in between them. So like if you want this vaccine, you'd have to really want it to go back twice. And, like that needs to be at the top of your mind. Otherwise you could forget about it, or you could just be like, that's too much work, right? Like,
I don't think anybody's going to forget.
I don't know. I feel like I would.
And the system isn't going to let you forget, right? Like you get the first dose, like they are fucking damn sure going to give you a call and an email and a million reminders and yeah, of course there's going to be some percentage that doesn't go back for the second. And yeah, it definitely does reduce the
chance of like people getting taking the full thing. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, but I think that I think that most people who want to be vaccinated, it's serious enough that they're going to go back, and the system is going to remind them constantly to go back.
I think the takeaway, or the point that I was trying to make, is that it's not a convenient vaccine. It's one that you have to want to get. It's not like a single shot that you can go and be done with it. It's
2 single shots.
What's that?
It's 2 single shots.
It's 2 single shots, but it's an investment in your time. And
apparently the first shot gives you a pretty reasonable amount of immunity.
Okay.
It's just not for as long.
I see.
That's my understanding of it. But yeah, I totally understand your point. And I think I'm really hoping, maybe this is me just really hoping you're wrong. And like maybe your arguments are sound. I just am in denial and like really hope you're wrong.
No, and I hope I'm wrong too. I I know that I'm kind of on the negative side of things, but I feel like my predictions so far, or my intuition so far, hasn't let me down. So I don't know.
Just
I do hope that I'm wrong.
in Haber's world, the vaccine is taken by no one and shows up on eBay for 200x the price. And
Well,
and
I mean, I think I also live in a very unique. Everybody in New York City wears a mask.
yeah,
Like,
that's
it
true.
is universal. Like, you very rarely see people without a mask on in New York City. So I think that, like, my kind of anecdotal evidence, for percentages leads me to believe that maybe more of the population wants this than actually does. Whereas you live in Michigan, where,
They're protesting outside of the governor's
where
house.
where
with
they're trying
guns.
to where they're trying to kidnap the governor.
Yeah, we're trying to kidnap the governor. You
And
dead Michiganders. What the hell's wrong with you people?
I'm actively arguing with my freight delivery drivers to put on a mask to deliver my freight. It's ridiculous.
I just want to know why you need 800 pounds of foam sealant or whatever you had.
It's because to insulate my basement, essentially.
Yeah.
That 800 pounds of foam sealant feels like something that gets you put on a watch list.
Dude, you know what it's like?
Foam sealant even be used for? I don't even know.
I don't know, man, but I wouldn't know why, like, fertilizer could be used to make a bomb either, but apparently it can. And if you buy a whole shitload of it, then it's going to get you put on a watch list.
No, dude, foam sealers like anything, like Christmas lights. You buy a 7-foot Christmas tree. Like, how many feet of Christmas lights do you need? It's like you look at the guide and it's like 4,000. You're like, what? And then you buy 3,000 and you're like not even halfway there. You're like, oh motherfucker, like how is this even possible? It's that kind of shit. Yeah. Michigan, dude, your state's being really fucking annoying right now. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it went Biden, but like the hearing,
We went Trump in 2016.
and your accents make you sound dumb, man. Like the native active accent in Michigan sounds pretty stupid. I'll be honest. I kind of feel bad. Like, it's not Texas.
What is the native accent in Michigan?
Yeah, what are you talking
It's got that and
Well,
like
it doesn't have like a serious northern vowel shift like it does in like the Dakotas or Minnesota or whatnot, right?
I mean, Michigan is one of the most neutral. Like, there's definitely influences from the surrounding areas, but
yeah. Well, are the surrounding areas holding election hearings? Because they're not. So I'm hearing yours.
Coming from the New Yorker,
Dude,
who has like one of the least favored accents in all of the U.S.
it's not the least favored. It's just people are jealous of it. That's really what it is. Now, you have what's her name? What was the was it Melissa? Who was the person that testified that was questionably drunk?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, something Capore or something. like that.
Yeah. Just listen to her.
Sitting next to your New Yorker, Rudy Giuliani, like the biggest buffoon in the world. What do you?
Does he even sound like a New Yorker? I don't even know. Sounds like a guy with dead.
That lady was straight up amazing. Like, I don't care what damage she could have possibly done to democracy. Like, the comedy that will be generated from her forever is worth it. Like, I am glad that woman is in the zeitgeist.
I mean, I'm not going to defend rural Michigan. It's really bad, but guess what? So are areas of New York. Like, these people like live all over the place.
I heard a comedian describe her as Karen's Gone Wild, which I thought was very, very accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was that was quite a testimony.
That was quite a testimony.
If you go to Staten Island, yes, yeah. If you go to Staten Island, though, like, it's very much like Michigan. Probably Staten Island has the highest rate of COVID in New York.
Yeah, so Staten Island holds an election hearing. We can make fun of Staten Island.
Are you saying that Staten Island is Italian Michigan?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. I have one more topic, but I know it's late. You guys want to hang out for a little bit longer? Or you got to go.
I'm good for a little while.
I got one more topic, Abers.
Sure, we'll make it quick.
All right. Facebook. There's a lawsuit being introduced and government suing Facebook to effectively break it up under antitrust because WhatsApp purchase and Instagram, and basically doing the whole you stifle competition, you don't create an environment that makes it impossible for any other company to succeed. And I think there might be some hints of the political like misinformation that's also built into there, but I think at the top end it's really just a standard antitrust, anti-competition type of lawsuit. So I haven't really read the merits. I don't know enough to say how much of this is posturing and how much of this is possible, but it feels like Facebook's so big. I'm kind of happy they're doing it, but I'm very worried it's just a thing for show. So I guess I'll throw it out to either one of you if you have any more information or if you just have like gut feelings on hearing that news.
I mean, it's a pretty substantial amount of states that are suing, right?
Yeah, it's like 30 something, I think. So
48.
I think it's like 46.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought I heard 48,
but it's I think it's 44, and also DC and Guam. And I'm not making that up. Like, I think that's actually true.
Like they're also there.
Yeah. So 46 territories total. But I mean, yeah, fucking break Facebook up. Like, absolutely. The stuff that was in the filing is pretty damning. Around like Zuckerberg sending an email saying that we shouldn't compete, we should just buy. So like anybody who looks like a competitor, we should just acquire. In 2008, and like clearly that's what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And some developer in like 2013 talking about how I guess they're trying to build a set of APIs and follow the rules for if anybody has a competitor or if another company has any sort of competitive offering, what they are and aren't allowed to use integration wise within Facebook.
Yeah, there was like a thing around Vine with that, right? How they limited Vine's ability to integrate.
Yeah,
and they would target it. So, I don't know how they target it, but I'm sure there's ways.
Well, so the issue is that they invite developers and businesses to use their APIs to collect data and to integrate into Facebook. And then as soon as they're deemed a competitor, they say they either offer to buy them, and they if they're nice, they'll offer to buy them, and if they decline, they will turn off their API access. So, or they'll just turn off their API access and essentially kill the competition, right? And I think that's one of the big things here is that they kind of trick companies and developers to use their services, being like, and then they build their products off of their services, and then as soon as it's competitive, they'll turn it off and kill the competition.
Well, could it be something as simple as like using Facebook login as your authentication method?
Yes.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? Because like so many things use that. Like, what if they decided that, I mean, I think originally my New York Times subscription was off of my Facebook login.
Right.
So you're giving Facebook power over the New York Times in that scenario to say, we're going to kill this.
Yeah, if enough users authenticated that way, and and then you killed that integration for the New York Times, and I had no other way, or I had to go manually try and figure out my registration with the New York Times and figure out how to log in some other way. Yeah, I could absolutely see that killing a service or killing a company when 90% of your install base can no longer log into the Surface, and users are fickle, so they'll just stop using it.
Right. If there's a competitor that's even close to it, they're out. And if you hadn't gotten to building in another authentication service yet, it's on the roadmap. Yeah, that it all sounds pretty bad. I don't know. I don't know what they're looking to achieve. I'm very worried this is going to be a very minor concession by Facebook at the end and nothing. But I would really, really love, I don't know, to create massive transparency to the thing where it chops its legs off, right? Where
die and go away. Yeah, that would be great.
Well, they flat out said what they were looking to do was to dissolve the ownership of WhatsApp and Instagram, right? So like, yeah, breaking up that company is the goal. And like, at least that they flat out said that. It's not like, antitrust suits against like antitrust suits against Microsoft. Like, they still owned Internet Explorer, they just weren't allowed to do certain things, and then they had to pay some money. But
Right.
nobody was like trying to make Microsoft not own Internet Explorer anymore.
That's true. That's true. No, that is significant. So, well, I hope, I think we're all on the side of hoping that they can do something. Facebook is a behemoth. It's a monster, and it's ugly, and it's showing that it's got way too much power. Yada yada yada. If they're, I would love the government to just take it over. just make it an open, apply whatever the laws are of like making it like a communal open space, right? Opening up transparency against it. And I think I don't know I was talking to you, Will, about it, but like the ability to radicalize feels like it's and misinformation seems to be much more widely distributed on Facebook over Twitter. And we were having this discussion, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and maybe people have already figured all this out, but it felt like Facebook private groups tend to be a very enabling channel to that, right? Like, how come the same amount of misinformation doesn't seem to track on Twitter that it does on Facebook? And private groups is like a function of Facebook that Twitter doesn't really have. It doesn't have a group functionality. It has hashtags, and that's about it. And hashtags are open; anyone can use them. So even the ability to get transparency into these on some kind of level or something. I don't know. It just feels like it's a dark hole that a lot of bad things can happen that is far too easy to organize and bring crazies together on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Avers.
I was going to quickly say, not to scope creep, but we need to do another topic of just social media and the how much it sucks and how it's destroying society.
Yeah, gotta do a CDC study that says that this is a societal ill, and then figure out how to ban it because it's not worth the price that we're paying for it right now. Yeah, I mean, from the Facebook thing though, like, yeah, the misinformation and getting rid of hopefully whatever this antitrust suit brings, helps get rid of some of the misinformation, gets rid of some of the radicalization that happens on Facebook. But just from like, a practical, what the antitrust suit can actually do, like getting rid of some of the, data collection methodology that Facebook has, and like, it knowing who you are, even if you're not a Facebook member, and like having a shadow profile for you so that it can still target you with ads. They're between them and Google, they have like 90% of the ad market on the internet. That is a ton of data that I'm hoping, by dissolving the company into smaller components, they become less able to collect that much data.
Yeah, and this goes into, I mean, it's not even Facebook collecting. It's not even Facebook being brilliant about collecting data. It's them buying data, and this is something that Europe got, well, is on the right page about with GDPR, right? We needed GDPR like yesterday, like 10 years ago, because that's kind of the root of the problem here. Well, it's the root of one of the problems here, is that we don't own our own data, and we don't even know who has it, and that's a serious issue. And it allows our data to be resold and purchased by companies like Google and Facebook, and then working in data, like the more data you have, the more powerful you become. Like once you can cross-reference data sets, like you can determine all different types of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's this idea that I think people have where it's like, oh, it doesn't matter you know, if they have all of the data about me, because like who's going to bother going through it all and like you know, finding something out about me or whatever. And it, like not understanding that it's like no individual person is ever going to go through it all. Like it's way more powerful than that, right?
Right.
Like it is machines that are going to go through it all and correlate all these things and like make all of these inferences.
And then know how to manipulate you into
Yeah,
buying
exactly.
or voting or doing whatever the hell they want to manipulate you to do because they know everything about you.
Yeah, and you know, I think there's still this disconnect between the population at large who thinks that like even if they have all my data, somebody still has to go through it.
Right.
Right? Like they don't understand how it actually works. Yeah, GDPR absolutely we needed.
Yeah, I think
ago.
that and that's something that that I think should be, well, yeah, that's one of these things. I mean, AOC tweeted about it, I think today. Like this is that's like that's a cause that's going to be that or a banner that's going to have to be flown by like a millennial, because these like older politicians, they don't know. Like they're the people that think like, oh, well, who's ever going to go through my data?
I
Like
mean, honestly, it's getting so like the technical understanding that I feel like you have to really get any of these things. I don't know that the average millennial really understands it either. Right? Like, of course, it's going to be better than, you know, somebody who's 60 years old, but yeah, there's a huge like technology knowledge gap that you can't expect Congress people to have.
Yeah, but I mean, the UK was able to pass GDPR. Like, sure, like they don't have to understand every facet of it, but just understanding that GDPR is a good thing is something that I would probably guess that younger people would agree with more than older people.
Probably. I might surmise that this has to do more with the fact that like 95% of politicians in the United States are lawyers and not scientists or, you know, some other profession, and that's not the case in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they have a very specific background. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that there should be more millennials in Congress, and like I think there should be an age cap. We're kind of going through that now with like Dianne Feinstein, who is, you know, 174 years old, and like is clearly, you know, I don't think that she is senile or has dementia or Alzheimer's or anything, but she's clearly not, you know, as with it as or as sharp as she was. Um, you know, and maybe it's time for the left to kind of push her out. Like,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to run again, and I would be perfectly fine if they passed like age limits of like nobody over 70 is allowed to be in Congress.
Yeah.
Or at least
Or the
not on a board that is in charge of these things.
Well, they could be on the AARP.
You can be on the
AARP oversight committee.
Yeah, or like every branch of government, like you know, like common sense, just common sense age laws. Like RBG was great, I loved her, but she was way too old to be doing that job. And I mean, she had a I mean, she still had a sharp mind, but even so, like just the health risk, like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she was like a 45-time cancer survivor.
Right.
She's
like
what are you
doing? Yeah,
and
I mean, yeah,
like she was a warrior, like she was a beast, but yeah, like she shouldn't have even been in that position. Like you know,
yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell somebody like Dianne Feinstein or Ruth Bader Ginsburg that like you have to retire now.
right.
I think it actually probably does make it much easier to just pass a law. Be like, we're not saying you have to retire. The law says you have to retire. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, one thing I did want to mention before we sign off. This is completely non sequitur. Habers, you got me addicted to that Alone show.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been binge watching that.
on Netflix.
No, so Netflix only has season 6.
Right. Yeah, we just
Who-
finished season 6.
Yeah, Hulu has all of the seasons.
Were you talking about in the woods?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude, I've been talking. I said that shit like a year and a half ago.
Well,
Did you?
fucking
Dude, this
Havers
fucking
was the
happens.
one-
I swear to fucking God, you never got down and listen to my suggestions. I got Mad Men from you. I got you on Mad Men. I said Community. I said Alone. And you're like, you know what? I don't know about these fucking things. Then Havers comes along, and you're like, dude, this is the greatest fucking show ever. I don't know why anyone didn't tell me about this.
That's because that was pre-COVID, Jim.
Yeah, exactly. But my
It's good, isn't it? It's pretty good.
the barrier has to be pretty high pre-COVID for me to like get into something. But now I'm like, I've watched everything else. What can I watch now? But I'll
Dude,
watch
I
this
even think I brought it
post-COVID
up on the goddamn first podcast. I'm gonna go back to the first goddamn podcast. I'm gonna find myself being like, guys, you should watch the ship Alone. You guys are like, what? That's just like Survivor, only worse. I'm like, no, I think it's
too.
better.
No, it's like Survivor, but much better.
Yes. And you're like,
'Cause
this
it's not
sounds
about-
stupid. All right.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
not like
find your
Survivor.
goddamn.
Although
We're gonna start off the next podcast with a goddamn clip show of this. Me bringing up this clip right here. Be like, what happened, guys? What happened?
I do have mixed feelings about Alone because later, as I don't know how far you are into your season, but
I'm in season 3 now.
okay, so you've watched the season, you've watched full seasons before.
Yeah, I've watched the first 2 seasons full.
Okay, so like the last half of the season just becomes like the starvation game, and it's like I'm watching these people like destroying their bodies and dying, and I'm like, oh, like
They're counting like how much protein they can have because like whatever the scarce resource is for their body to be able to survive, they're like trying to find it somewhere.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. Also, I can't stand reality television. Like I can't stand like the contrived drama of like, you know, like the weird shots, and that just drives me up the wall. But apart from that, it's great.
So I think that they do a pretty good job of not falling into the standard reality TV tropes. Season 2 fell into it a little bit harder than season 1. So like the commercial like cliffhanger of like, you know, oh, it looks like the guy is about to fall out of his boat, and then like, you know, you come back after commercial break and he's just like, he tipped over a little bit and he's fine, and
It's like,
well,
but like they took that first part of it and
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of bullshit. But what I do like about the show is that it's very slow. That somebody doesn't go home every episode, right? It's not this like forced game.
no, dude, like the first episode, like 3 people drop because like 3 people drop the first night, like every single time, right?
Dude, I'm always so happy when the most arrogant fucks go home immediately. It makes me feel so good. Like the guy who's like, I'm never more than 3 feet from my gun, and like the first night there's like wolves howling, and he's like, get me the fuck out of here.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't pick them sometimes. Sometimes like there's some really silent, like the silent ones. It's so hard to tell. Like, are you just gonna call it, or are you just this person who's just gonna be, you know, they're gonna be 3 months later, you're gonna have a garden, you're gonna have like a house. You're like, what, you know, and like, how did you do this? Like, I'll live here forever, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
The thing that's fascinating is I've only watched season 6. I want to watch the other ones, but I'm not sure if this happens much in the other ones. I'm guessing it does. Like the mental breakdowns that occur.
Oh yeah,
you know, like the people that just tap out because like they can't handle it mentally anymore, or the people that are just like slowly going insane but don't tap out, are even like more fascinating. Like they'll start like singing to themselves or like talking about weird things, and I'm like, oh my god, this person's going insane.
Yeah, so you can like, absolutely, the mental game is, and the mental aspect is the far more compelling part of it. Like the survival thing, like, okay, cool, whatever. It's watching how people deal with the fact that like they've never been alone with their thoughts before.
Yeah.
And you can tell the ones that are definitely not going to make it because they're the ones who have to stay busy. And like the people who like wind up building a fucking log cabin or like a canoe, or like, you know, one guy builds like a game of dice, like a football game with like huge, you know, cubes that he carved into die. And it's like that guy has to stay busy because if he is ever alone with his thoughts, he's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
That is
like that's the guy who like kills a deer and stuffs it and starts talking to it at night, right? Like that's that guy.
Yeah. And like the people who do well are the ones who are just like, kind of at peace with the fact that they're a little bit insane, but they're okay with it, and they just kind of grind on. It's fun to watch, like, somebody very early on like have an emotional breakdown because like they've never spent more than 12 hours by themselves before and have never had to like really just think.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a Michael Scott when he gets put out in the woods. That's what it is.
Yeah. And
I've taken these pants and I fashioned them into shorts.
Yeah.
And now I've refashioned them.
And a hat. I think pant legs and makes a hat with them or something.
Yeah. But no, I also think they should give them more than $500,000.
Yeah.
Like that is not enough money.
That and I feel like there needs to be a first and at least second. I would say first, second, and third, because those last three are usually like they're all like in it.
Yeah, and like, how shitty must you feel if you're in second place in that show?
Right. Yeah. That, and I mean, I don't know how it happens in the other seasons, but usually the last few people only go home because of medical reasons, like because they're forced to leave, because they get medical checkups and they're too light and they're like, it's too much.
Well, no, I've seen one where it's like they're 3 months in and one guy like steps in a pond with like his shoe and like that's it, he's out. Like it just creates this tumbling problem, like I can't get like, and then it starts to rain and they can't get dry and then they catch a cold and it's like, oh, if I just didn't step in that puddle, I would have been fine. Like it becomes that crazy where you have to be that on, Yeah.
There's a guy in season 2 who falls in the water and he like doesn't even get out of the water. He just like stands up in the water and then like pulls out his radio and like hits the button.
Yeah, like
and I'm like, oh, I wonder how long he's gonna stand there before he gets out. And then like they show the shot of like the boat pulling in and he's just standing in the same spot in like freezing fucking water.
He's just so pissed. He's like hurting. He's like punishing himself, being like, "Fuck me."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Where he's like, "Yep, I'm fucked. I will never dry out my clothes." So
yeah, because they bring him in like these super wet environments where it's like impossible to even have a fire. So you're like, "Well, I'm gonna freeze if I stay overnight. Like I'm done." Hey, is season 6 the one with the Wolverine?
Yes,
dude, isn't that one hysterical?
That guy's awesome. Yes.
When he's like, "I built have you seen the whole season?"
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what. All right, well, there's a guy. It won't matter. I don't think it's because I'm not spoiling it. There's a guy with a Wolverine, and he's like, "I got some meat, but this Wolverine's coming." And like, he built this tower, and he's like, "There's no way the Wolverine's getting up here." And then like, he shows up the next morning, and like, he built this tower up like 10 feet, and then there's no meat. There's like fucking Wolverine, and he literally goes like, this Wolverine is just terrorizing him. So I don't know. It was impressive. That guy was really funny.
The best part of it is he ends up killing the Wolverine with a hatchet.
Yeah, and he's like, "Come here, Wolverine!" And like you hear it in the background. You're like, "Oh my
Jesus Christ!"
Well, he pins it to the ground with a bow, and then you see him run up to it with a hatchet.
One thing I have learned is that people really love just bludgeoning the shit out of fish.
Yeah,
like
they don't. Like, did they didn't have the tools to flay it or something? Because yeah,
no, there's a fucking scene right where like they in the season 1 they do like this pretty amusing juxtaposition of like somebody who has like a clear ton of respect for wildlife and like is very careful to like put things out of their misery really quickly, and then like some 22-year-old kid who like catches this gigantic salmon and he's like just waving it around and he has an axe in his hand, and instead of like chopping the head off, he turns it around and just keeps bashing it over the head with the back of the axe. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like,
yeah.
And like this happens pretty often that I'm like, oh, it must be like a pretty common thing to do to fish is just bash them over the head. But like people just love bludgeoning fish to death in this fucking show.
Yeah. So all right, that's a good show. I'm gonna go watch some more, but I'm actually rewatching The Wire right now because it's a great show. I haven't seen it in a while, and I just have it playing on in the background, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, definitely want to go be depressed about the state of Baltimore in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
It's a happy show.
Yeah.
What season are you on?
2, the shipping one, I think, which is generally the worst one, right?
Yeah, shipping one's pretty weak.
Yeah, it's like, But what's her name's on it? I didn't realize it. Well, I guess I kind of remembered it. Michael Scott's girlfriend, wife.
Beatty.
Yeah. Yeah, BD's in. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
I'll see you guys. This was a lot of fun. Until next time.
Yep. See you guys.
Later, guys.